Actually, Pulp Fiction was the one I was introduced to first through my older sister. I remember she was allowed to rent it when it came out on video, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I like snuck downstairs to get something to drink, and my sister said, come here.
Shh, don't tell mom and dad, right?
That's exactly what happened. And it was, I gotta stab her 3 times. No, you don't have to fucking
Stab her 3 times. He's gonna stab her once, but it's gotta be hard enough to get
through the breastplate.
Oh man, Pulp Fiction's a great one too, yeah.
So that was the first scene, and then she shooed me back out of the room, but that was my introduction to Quentin Tarantino, was Uma Thurman getting an adrenaline shot in her breastplate from Eric Stoltz and John Travolta.
3!
Hey everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Back to the Podcast with your host Justin Neal, and I am your Chris Lawler.
Redo!
I am Chris Lawler.
That's better.
And of course, we are here to have fun and talk about movies past, present, and
Future!
Whoa. Justin, it's always fun to sit down and talk movies with you.
Movies are fucking bullshit.
And of course, we are going to dive into 1992 this time.
Not really 1992 anymore.
We're seeing a lot of great numbers out there on YouTube.
All over YouTube.
A lot of people tuning in, checking out the episodes, and subscriber count is going up, but it's definitely not where we need it to be, so go ahead.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
John doesn't subscribe to Chaos.
Of course, today we're going to have some fun diving into, I think, one of my favorite years. This list was hard to decipher what we were going to talk about. Justin, were you as excited as I was when we decided to do 1992 next?
Yeah, there's a lot of butter to spread over a lot of bread, I'll tell you that. So I'm not sure exactly how much we're going to be able to get to this time. We're definitely going to have to continue this series and go deeper into 1992 in another episode, but I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. And of course, if you're excited about that, hit the like button. Like I said, subscribe to the channel, comment below. And of course, before we usually get into it, Justin, what'd you see this week?
So I watched 2 things that I want to talk about, but to be honest, they're both from 1992. So I'm going to wait and talk about those in the episode.
Okay.
Have you watched anything this week that you want to talk about?
I actually did. And there's something huge that I want to talk about. It's not even a movie, it's a show. So The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon finally concluded with its 5th season. And it was amazing. TV shows for me are notorious for never sticking the landing. You watch for all these seasons, you're dedicated to these characters, you want to see some kind of, some kind of ending to it. And for me, Marvelous Miss Maisel was an amazing show. I did not set out to fall in love with that show the way that we did. We were just looking for something new to watch. Have you seen any of this one with your wife, Justin?
So I've picked up snippets because my wife does watch that show.
Nice.
Did whatever. Anyway, it was one of her shows, so I picked up snippets here and there, and I did like what I saw. I just haven't sat down and invested my time in it yet.
Oh, man.
I'm editing this show.
Yeah.
She speaks very highly of it.
I think it's an A+ rating, and it stuck the landing. The ending was incredible. A+ television on Amazon Prime.
That's another recommendation.
Huge recommendation from Chris. I did introduce the wife to Inglourious Bastards this week.
Quite frankly, watching Donnie beat Nazis to death is close we ever get to going to the movies.
Which I thought was a big fun
Donnie!
ride.
Yeah!
One of my favorite Tarantino movies.
That's German here wants to die for country.
It is fun.
Oblige him.
It's a fun one. I like that one. And I remember a lot of it, but I've forgotten all like the more quieter beats that like threaded through. How we got there, it was almost like a murder mystery in the way that he wrote it. The whole like movie feels like this cat and mouse kind of detective thing.
Would appear there's only one thing left for you to do.
With this like guise of violence.
Say auf Wiedersehen to your Nazi boss.
I really, really love that. And the climax, I know he does a lot of bloody climaxes, but that one felt very justified. Yeah, this is what it rose to, and this is what it delivered upon. Awesome. I'm probably going to get chewed out.
I've been chewed out before.
I just love that line. It's one of the best lines in cinema, man. But yeah, 1992, man. We're looking it up, and I'm just like, oh, this movie. So I must have been at like the right age for this one.
Speaking of Quentin Tarantino.
Mr. Brown, that's a little too close to Mr. Shit.
Yeah.
Because Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah. We could definitely start off with that one, Reservoir Dogs. Now, I didn't see that in 1992. I was pretty young when Reservoir Dogs came out, but it is now one of my like quintessential like film experiences and stuff.
And to be honest with you, it's not one of my favorite of Quentin Tarantino's. I think there's some interesting things to it, but I think he grew in craft.
Yeah, I appreciated that film because of how like he was like, how do I create this tension in this movie and use like a low budget and one like basically I know they film in other locations, but they film in one big warehouse location.
That's the idea. It's one location.
Yeah, no, Reservoir Dogs was definitely a great like eye opener for me of like what violent movies could be for sure.
Yeah,
I was not expecting this when I sat down. I didn't know anything about this movie when I watched it, so I wasn't ready for like the onslaught of violence that it was to occur on screen. And like, I do enjoy it, but you're right, not my favorite. What is your favorite then? Can you rate one above all of Tarantino's movies? Is there one that's just like, that's the one? Is it Pulp Fiction? I know that's a lot of people's faves.
No, I would actually say I would lump Kill Bill 1 and 2 together and say ultimately that's the most like Tarantino movie because he just puts every reference he's ever you know what I mean? That's the one like from deep down inside he vomited up everything he ever wanted to see in a movie came out in one of those two movies. After that, I think he made better movies. I actually really like The Hateful Eight. That's become one of my like new favorites of his.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I think I already spoke on it, man. I think it has become Inglourious Bastards. That is just, I do like war movies like that, and I like his take on it.
It's very quotable.
Dominic De Coco.
Come in.
Dominic De Coco.
Bravo. Bravo.
But you're right. Kill Bill 1 and 2, I think is going to be, I think that would actually take my top. You're right. I enjoy the story so much that I like that there's almost 4 hours of it.
Soundtrack kicks ass.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
All of it. The characters are great. They're all very unique. It's all very iconic. So I think that's probably his most like him movie that like of his career because he was unleashed. That's the point. He had the money and the time to kind of do what he fucking wanted to do, and that's what he wanted to do, and it all came out. Like, I hope to be in that position one day. It's going to be bonkers, and Kill Bill was that movie for him. But going back to, so Reservoir Dogs, 1992, the list in 1992 is insane.
Well, I would ask you, because there's so many of these movies that I have a memory of, right? But it's like, what of this list do you have a memory of seeing in the theater and enjoying that actual year and the experience of it? The list of things that I've seen is long, but the list of things that I remember seeing in the theater is actually pretty short. Do you have any good memories?
Encino Man.
Encino Man. I saw that one as well in the theater. I had a good time with that.
Encino Man was one that my buddies and I saw in the theater. That was definitely a middle school movie for me. The biggest one that I saw in the theater that year was The Mighty Ducks.
Take the fall. That's hurt. Get indignant. One more time.
Really? That was the big one for you that year, huh? Don't get me wrong. I love The Mighty Ducks. Such a fun movie. And I played hockey at the time.
That was a huge hit.
So,
that was a huge hit.
It was huge. Yeah, absolutely. That's why there was 2 more. And then, of course, a cartoon.
And a reunion.
And the whole TV show that's going on is actually pretty fun if you haven't checked it out. And then, of course, I formed a hockey league in my neighborhood, and we were the Ducks. And
was hockey a thing in Texas? Because hockey was not a thing in Georgia.
So Dallas had just gotten its first NHL team like right around this time. So hockey was starting to take like a small shift.
Georgia doesn't care about hockey so much that we lost our team to Canada.
Oh man, that's funny.
Mighty Ducks was a big one. And Encino Man, really Encino Man. It shouldn't be as good as it is. Encino Man.
No, it shouldn't. With it being so of its time.
If I had the whole Brady Bunch thing happen at my pad, I'd go grind over there. So don't tax my gig so hardcore, Custer.
You know, of like its place and time, California. At that time in the early 90s, right?
That's why it transcended California, because we had Sean Astin to attach to. Like, I didn't attach myself to Pauly Shore. I just thought that character, I just thought he was funny. I was Sean Astin. I was envious of the jock with the pretty girl that I had a crush on.
And wasn't this one of the earlier Pauly Shore ones, so we weren't really used to his shtick at this point?
I'm a unique weasel, David.
The weasel thing, it was new. This is what started that whole thing. So we got like Son-in-Law and Biodome and shit like that out.
I shamefully liked Biodome, dude.
But Pauly Shore, that was his thing. It was new. But we had Sean Astin, and Sean Astin is so good as the everyman.
I guess finding something frozen, dug up here or there, wouldn't be that uncommon.
And Brendan Fraser's emoting was really like good as the caveman. He brought a lot of like drama and emotion to the scenes that he was in, even when he wasn't speaking and stuff. So it was good.
That's actually a really good trio. They got a good combination of three people to hold that. No one really overstepped or stepped on anyone else's kind of toes, you know what I mean, in terms of performance.
Johnny Depp, I think, was supposed to be the caveman first.
No, I didn't know that.
He had a scheduling conflict, and then Brendan Fraser stepped in at the last minute.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that.
That's a crazy one.
What was your big movie in the theater for 1992?
So this was the year where I was finally like getting old enough to like go out with friends, and you know, because I'm old now, guys. And so this was the time where I was actually able to like go to the movie theater a little bit more regularly because I could go catch a ride with somebody, or you know, we were allowed to be more unoccupied. But Wayne's World was the big one this year for me. 1992 came out. I saw this movie 13 or so times in the theater.
Nice.
I had never gone to go see a movie.
A dozen's big.
Yeah, that's a lot, right?
It is.
I just,
especially at that age,
kept going to take friends to go see it. I was just like, guys, we've got to go see Wayne's World. It was the funniest thing ever.
Don't you want to open your present?
If it's a severed head, I'm going to be very upset.
I wasn't like some hardcore like SNL fan where I was like, oh, they're making this into a movie. I have to see this. Of course, once it came out, it was just the greatest thing ever. It spoke to a whole generation of kids my age.
He blows goats. I have proof.
Exactly.
There's two of everything, so there's
exactly, dude.
Never.
Oh man, Wayne's World. It obviously resonated with me. It's still one of my favorites. Made so much money. It was this huge hit.
Is it the highest grossing like comedy of the year, 1992?
Yeah.
It made a ton of money.
Yeah. It's got a lot of my money after seeing it 13 times and taking people. I'm probably the reason it did so well.
That was one of those in middle school. Like friends would come over and spend the night on Friday or Saturday night, and we would watch that twice.
Which I admit is both bogus and sad.
Like we would go through it and quote the whole thing and then kind of rewind it and put it on again. And of course we were, you know, playing and doing other things, but it would play again the second time.
I love it.
And
I love
yeah,
it,
it was definitely one of those that it's a staple of my middle school years, Wayne's World. And it introduced me to so many things, like because I played baseball, you know, I played sports. So I knew like We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions as like sports anthems. But it was Wayne's World that introduced me to Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody.
I think we'll go with a little Bohemian Rhapsody, gentlemen.
Good call.
They really put a rocking soundtrack together for this like low budget comedy, you know, based on an SNL sketch. And like, so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it was directed actually by a woman named Penelope Spheris.
I did know that.
She hadn't really directed motion pictures before. She had just directed like rock and roll documentaries, you know, so I think she really added something to that. I mean, once again, it was the highest grossing comedy of the year. I don't think she dampened the comedy by any means.
And some documentary feel too. It's interesting that she comes from a documentary background because they break the fourth wall. You know what I mean? Like it's done almost documentary style at times. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like they're a documentary crew following around these two idiots that make a TV show in their basement.
There's a whole
I'm with that.
There's a whole style of that which wouldn't have been brought in, even if it's not like beating you in the face.
What do you think you're doing? Only me and Garth get to talk to the camera. Come on.
That wouldn't have been there in quite the same way if the filmmaker hadn't been from that background. You know what I mean?
When I watch that movie, I just become a child again. I don't even analyze it as a filmmaker. I just become a 13-year-old kid, like all over again. That's me gushing over Wayne's World. I knew that was going to happen. I love that movie to death. Is there anything else from that year that came out in theaters?
All of my stories, all of my anecdotes from 1992, the movies on this list are all from stuff at home. I don't have a lot of theater, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Wow. No,
I don't even know why.
Batman Returns blew my mind because we showed up and they had the bat signal. They made it such a big deal out of it. Cool. It was this big franchise sequel. And of course, I loved Batman Returns. I think I did see that one a couple more times in the theater that year. Well, probably not that year because it came out in December, but the following year.
Oh, yeah.
Solid Batman movie. I think that was really like what made me love Tim Burton movies and really like. And then I think Beetlejuice as well. Edward Scissorhands was a big one for me when I was younger too. But Batman Returns, man, was a big deal at the theater because they had that dude up on the roof dressed as Batman doing his little pacing thing with the spotlight. And it was like an event when we showed up to the theater.
Sure. I think about Batman Returns and I think about what a pain it was to make because it takes place in winter, but they shot it all like on location and in studios in Los Angeles. So
really?
any snow, all of that shit had to be manufactured. And, you know, on some level, yeah, you got more control because of it, but you still got to do it. It's still kind of a pain. So you have to make it look like winter. That whole movie is a winter movie, right?
Yeah.
And they shot it all. Movie, right? It's a Christmas movie that they shot in Los Angeles, California. I thought Danny DeVito is so perfect as the Penguin, and I love how, like, slimy.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of reasons I like Batman Returns better than
Meow.
Batman.
That intro. Explosive action sequence, and Batman is already Batman. We're just moving on and finally getting to the fun that we all really want to be doing.
Oh my God, I am so tired of fucking character reboots over and over. I'm so tired of origin stories over and
I know.
over.
You got a lot of flack in our short about the Across the Spider-Verse thing when you were bitching about that.
I did.
People were not happy that you were like a little mopey about.
I was like, this is what we're doing? We're rehashing canon events? This is the point of what we're doing now? And the nerds did not take kindly to my assessment of the situation.
Sir, what I'm typing here, you need to listen to.
And I responded to all of them.
Guys, it's okay. Sometimes we just have
I'm all for it.
Opinions.
Please have at it.
Yeah. But it is fun, right? When they just go on the adventure. Like, I already know this character. I just want to go have some fun. And Batman Returns is one of those movies. I think that's also why
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
the sequel and the Nolan ones work so well. Now, don't get me wrong, Heath Ledger's fucking amazing in that. And that Joker was amazing and stuff. But once again, no origin bullshit. Just Batman doing Batman things in that movie and Joker doing Joker things. And it was just all the things that we wanted to see. And then they were like, they shoehorned in some Two-Face stuff and it's amazing as well. That was amazing. It was so good.
If the adventure is good enough, we know why. We get it. We don't need to see it and rehash it over and over again. Focus on what's happening, not how we fucking got there. Just make it good now. Give him a good adventure. But anyway.
So anyway, out of things like I saw in the theater, though, those would have been like the 10 poles. Then the rest of this really does break down to stuff that I've seen through time or, you know, when it came out on HBO. Once again, my parents were avid payers of, you know, cable. So I was always watching these movies on repeat. One of the big ones for me that I watched stupidly on repeat. It's not even a good movie. And I never even really saw from the beginning because they would air movies at the same time every day. So when I would get home from school, Alien 3 would be at the scene where they're doing the like, we're going to fight and survive to like all the prisoners. So like that scene has absolutely no like frame of reference. I have no like
you've just
idea
seen it over and over and over
what
and over
what
again.
led us to this point.
So I say, fuck that thing. Let's fight it.
I don't know why they're on this penal colony. I didn't even know it was a penal colony.
Exactly. And then I finally watched that movie from beginning to end. And like, obviously Alien 3 hasn't held up, but did you see that at all? Like when it first came out on VHS?
No, God, no. Actually,
No?
I don't even know. I mean, obviously I wasn't allowed to see it, but I didn't even see it on VHS. I was way more into Aliens, I think, at that point. I didn't really know about Alien 3 until after I became a fan of David Fincher. And then I went back and
one
went,
of his earlier movies.
And I went back and I would rather watch the like making of Alien 3 dumpster fire documentary. I would rather watch about making it than actually watch the movie itself because it was, you know, Fincher versus the studio. And that to me, I would rather read about and learn about because I find that fascinating. But I think that there are interesting things about the movie, but Alien 3 was never one of my movies.
No, it was never one of mine. But I just remember watching it, especially from that end sequence and watching her dive off into the molten. I'd seen that so many damn times.
Yeah, Alien 3 is a hot mess. If you've never looked into it, if you're interested at all, go look up some behind the scenes stuff on Alien 3. There was a whole shitstorm.
Yeah, James Cameron was supposed to actually start working on it, and then he left to go do T2. Then I think they brought in another director I'm drawing a blank on, and then weeks before they were filming, David Fincher was brought on to like put this thing together.
Because he had only done music videos at that point. He was a very well-known, respected, like he was doing Madonna videos and shit like that. So he was a top tier, high-end music video director.
Grace Kelly, Harlow Jean, picture of a beauty queen.
And Alien 3 was his way in. he was brought into an existing property with a lot of decisions that had been made before he even got there.
It's amazing to me that Fox is the #1 studio in the country because they're all such a bunch of morons.
And it was a shit show. And so it was just David versus Goliath the whole time. So after that whole shitstorm, he went off and licked his wounds and made some more music videos. And then that's when he came back with Seven. And if you think about it, that's why Seven is such a fuck you movie, because he was so pissed off about the shitstorm that was making Alien 3 that he was like, oh, I'll come back. I'll show them. I'll show everybody. All right. And that's what Seven is. But anyway, the big kind of adult movie for me is Harrison Ford's Patriot Games.
Fuck yeah, man.
I love that movie. And one of my
Yes.
oldest friends, who is sadly no longer with us, he lived in the street next to mine, and so he would stay at my house a lot, and I would stay at his house a lot because we were the same age, lived in the same neighborhood. And so that when that came out on VHS, I remember spending the night at his house, and his parents had some friends over, and they were watching that downstairs. And so we kept hearing like the music, and it's that whole like Irish IRA thing going. So the music has that like Celtic, you know, sort of, you know, thread through it, that whole thing. And I always thought that was so interesting. And I remember coming, you know, we would come downstairs to get something to drink. And I just remember catching snippets of that final scene as they're going through the house in the dark.
Oh,
and I thought that was so intriguing when I was
Yeah.
younger. And so as soon as I could, I saw Patriot Games, and I still love that movie. My wife does too. It's on regular. It's one at least once a year. At least once a year it gets thrown on.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm glad that you enjoy it at that level, because I think it is a supremely excellent film. It is just
Sean Bean.
Harrison Ford is amazing. Sean Bean, of course. Sam Jackson in a great supporting role as well.
As he does.
James Earl Jones really, as you know, being like so iconic on screen when he was in his little like kind of like
CIA
maternal
role
kind of figure. Yeah, he was a little like kind of like
Papa Bear. Yeah, he's definitely, he's a
yeah.
Papa Bear. He's a good Papa Bear. So Patriot Games, I love Jack Ryan, but that's really mainstream, you know? Is there anything off the beaten path that you like from that year that maybe you didn't see right away?
There's so many odd things. Yeah. When I was looking at the list, I couldn't help but stop myself when I came across Toys. And, you know, I was like, toys. Oh, the Robin Williams one. That's right. That movie was weird as hell. But I saw that movie like 5 times. That is one of those like obscure movies that I'm sure people don't remember, but it had great marketing and advertising. I was seeing all these trailers with all these funny little quirky moments with Robin Williams in it, because he was such a bankable star at the time that we were like, oh, another Robin Williams movie. Let's go see it. And nobody really expected what they ended up seeing with LL Cool J and Joan Cusack and stuff. And then I think I'm striking a chord, because didn't you end up watching that this week as well?
So Toys was one that I kind of had in middle school, like tape from TV, and that movie is fucking bonkers. But
it's so bonkers,
I
right?
didn't realize quite what was going on in that movie until last night. We realized that she had never seen it. She didn't know what it was about. And I was like, oh, this is super weird. We gotta watch this, just because I want to see what you think of it now. You know what I mean? I can't even necessarily say you'll like it, but I'm really curious what you think of it. And watching it last night, I totally get what Barry Levinson, the writer-director, was going for now. I swear that guy was like picked on by the ROTC or something like that growing up, because that whole thing is a fuck you to the military-industrial complex. From a writer's point of view, that's what he's really trying to say. And that's, he thinks the military hawks of that time, at least, were all insecure men with tiny dicks.
Of course, I wouldn't pick up on that as a kid when I saw
We
this movie.
wouldn't have. Go back and watch Toys. That movie is crazy.
Where did you find it?
I just rented it. You can rent it on
You
Prime.
just rented it. Okay. Yeah. I saw that movie so many times when it came out. I thought, I don't know why I liked it. It was so appealing to the eye, the things that they were doing with the set pieces and the costume designs and stuff.
Very strange. Anyway, go check out Toys. That's a weird one.
Yeah. And they just don't make stuff like that really anymore. One of my other like really deep ones that I saw that was on here that I watched way too many times was Cool World. I loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So to see like a more mature like take on that with Brad Pitt and Oh goodness, who else was in that one?
Gabriel Byrne is who you're thinking.
Yes, Gabriel Byrne. That was it.
Kim Basinger.
Yeah, as
or Basinger.
Basinger.
Yeah, it's one of those. I've heard it both ways, honestly, but I've never heard her say it, so I don't know which way.
Every time I talk to her, she's just like, "Hi, I'm Kim," and I'm like, "Damn it, Kim." But yeah, Cool World. Did you ever see this one, man? Like this one?
No, but that's a Ralph Bakshi movie that he did, the animated Lord of the Rings movie, and so he does weird experimental animation stuff. So it's not surprising that he did that movie because, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's, you know, live action characters interacting with animated.
Yeah, with a whole cartoon.
And they actually had people on set and then they rotoscoped them out. So like they're acting with Kim Basinger on set and then they rotoed her out. And if you don't know what rotoscoping is, they basically go frame by frame and cut the character out and animate on top of it, essentially where the hole is.
Yeah.
And that's how they did that. It's very complicated, but especially at that time, it's not easy to do because they were shooting on film. So they literally had to like animate onto like a cell, and then they optically combine them into a final film.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really difficult process and really hard to do. Like those are a big pain in the ass. Did you like Cool World? Was that one of your movies at that time?
It really was, man. I haven't seen it in forever. I wonder how it holds up today. But obviously this was still like before we had gone to like CG characters and do it in this very dark, mature way. I kind of liked it. It had like a horror kind of movie vibe to it, meets like a 1920s like neo-noir. I mean, did you ever see anything like weird like that just stuck with you?
The movie didn't stick with me, but the idea of the movie stuck with me. And I finally got to watch it for the first time recently with my wife, who had also never seen it. And it came out that year, and that's The Crying Game.
Oh, man, I remember this. Once again, like Silence of the Lambs, this was like something that people like whispered to each other.
They talked
I heard like
in hushed whispers.
They did. Oh, the children came
The
here.
Crying Game.
Yeah,
and I kept thinking, like, what the fuck
what
does
is
that
this?
mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, I was intrigued. Like, well,
Yeah.
if the adults are talking about it in whispers, I want to fucking know what that is. Like, I was drawn towards that. And then I think when I finally heard about what the big reveal was, I went, oh, okay. And so I just never really sat and watched it. So we finally sat and watched it. And my wife was like, this movie is so boring. She was like, it's not bad. It's just so
boring.
slow. I was able to cut it a little more slack, I think, in my own head. That I was like, well, it was of its time and of its place. I didn't think it was quite as boring as she did. And I thought it was really interesting. I can see now why it was notorious, because if you don't know, the thing with The Crying Game, that was the big reveal.
We're years into it. Go ahead.
We're introduced to a character who is, that we think is a woman, and the character that we are following, who's played by Stephen, I don't know if it's Stephen Ray or Stephen Rhea. I don't know how to pronounce it. I also knew him from also Neil Jordan, who directed The Crying Game, also did Interview with the Vampire.
Okay.
And he was part of this guy, Stephen Rhea or whatever, is part of Antonio Banderas's crew, if you remember that sequence. So I kind of knew who that was. Anyway, this is him in the main role. And he kind of starts following.
I remember him from Stargate. He's the prince or the thing when they
is
go to
who
like
we're
the
talking
ancient-
about, is the hairdresser.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're introduced to this character as a woman, and the big reveal is she takes off her gown and we tilt down and there is a penis. And that was the big thing at that time. And so Lindsay thought it was really boring. I gave it a little more credit. I can see why it was notorious at that time.
I was going to say, man, right there, I think is a perfect place to call it a day. We've talked about so many movies from 1992. Obviously, it was a fantastic year for films, at least in our eyes. I didn't even get to half of the list that I have over here.
The list goes on and on. We're going to do more.
This list that we had over here wasn't even like a third or a fourth of what we could talk about. So if you want to see more episodes just like this, comment below. Let us know that you want to see more 1992 continued episodes, or at least just a dive into the year of cinema and talk about the movies from that year. We're having a great time with this one. Thank you all so much for joining us on these episodes here and back to the podcast. So keep it tuned right here for more episodes just like this. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got new episodes every week. Justin, tell the people
subscribe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please subscribe. We love you. Thank you.
And
subscribe.
of course, we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of Back to the Podcast.